everybody, and welcome to the Quantum Coalescence podcast, hosted by Missy, Lena, and Jen. In today's episode, we are taking a look at family dynamics when it comes to spirituality. So the notion of having to sort of come out of the spiritual closet, if you will, or having to possibly take a look at evaluating friendships or relationships when it comes to getting into the woo. We'll go ahead and jump into that today. Any of you ladies want to start us off today?
I think Jen should start us
Oh,
off.
jeez. This is going to happen every episode, isn't it? Where Missy's like,
It
okay,
actually
and
is. There is a flow.
I can cut that part out.
Jeez. Well, you know, when Lena offered this topic, I kind of was, and we were just mentioning before we started recording, is like, I kind of thought we were beyond this. And maybe that's a good wake-up call for us who's in it already, right? We've already kind of made our decisions and are more public with who we are and our practices. And maybe that's a privileged thought, is that there's so people struggling, which was, like I said, a really good wake-up call, I think, for me, because I kind of thought that the collective was moving past some of these programmings and paradigms and things like that to where maybe, good, let's talk about it. Let's help the people who still need help, because we're here to help lead that and show that it's okay. And whatever your spirituality may be, this is, I think, also maybe opening up the spectrum of it doesn't matter what you subscribe to. This applies to almost everything.
Anything that's not norm.
Right. Which we're gonna, also maybe preface that this is not meant to dog on any Christian belief systems, but that is the most prevalent of normalcy in our country, at least. So we are talking about that from our perspective within this country. It may get a little pokes and stabs a little bit, but just to help shift and move maybe some of those thinkings and realize those programmings are still there.
Yeah, actually, now that we're talking about it, I did, just this weekend, get a message from a client who said, I feel very lost. I feel like I'm interested in spirituality and all things spiritual. And then she's like, but I feel scared. I feel scared to participate and guilty, like I'm going to be damned to hell. And then, upon further discussion, she wasn't even raised in a religious home. They were Easter Christmas family that went to church on Easter and Christmas. And so she has this deep rooted belief system that wasn't even given to her necessarily it was given to her by family, but not in a physical manner where she was attending church every Sunday. So it is interesting that it's that deeply rooted, and it does go way back, and it's there, Christianity. And I honestly think that Catholicism, being as old as it is a major player in this.
Yeah, absolutely. It became apparent to me that this is still something to be talked about, because what you pay attention to becomes your reality. And I had really been focusing on some of the witchy groups that I'm a member of on Facebook, where it's people talking about, sharing ideas. Sometimes it's about decor and what you can put in your home or on your altar. And sometimes it's spell work, and sometimes it's energies and spirits. And so the topics run the gamut. And so it can be surface level and it can be super deep. And so half the time when I'm scrolling, I'll just see posts from them and people talking and sharing ideas. And so that's, I'm in it. We're here now. So that's what I was paying attention to. And then I happened to notice that, some people are still uncomfortable with the idea of having to explain their interests or their beliefs because of, structured religions. And so I think, for me, I came from a Catholic background, but it never really felt like the perfect fit for me. I was raised Catholic. I went to CCD classes. I became confirmed after being baptized, and blah, blah, blah. I was even a Eucharistic minister for a while in the church, so handing out the host and the wine. And, I always thought Jesus was cool, but, you go to church and you hear the same stories. You hear the same letters to the Corinthians. And unless you have a really enigmatic priest who's willing to frame it in a way that is very relevant to you, sometimes it can be very dry. I don't say that to be mean. I'm just saying, sometimes
Yeah.
it's like that in that type of setting. Other Christian churches are a little bit more expressive. Anyway.
They run the gamut, really. I mean, it's everything.
Exactly. So for me, it never really felt 100% like, yes, this is it for me. And then I started to study modern spirituality and the metaphysical, and I'm like, from a logical standpoint, this makes so much more sense. From a heart space, this makes so much more sense. And so that's why I started to pursue this stuff, is because it made sense to me in my head and in my heart.
So since you were raised Catholic, did you have that problem with your family at all then? Like the coming out process?
Not really. There was only resistance from a couple of people, and they weren't even my age. It was an aunt. Interestingly enough, my grandma didn't even have a problem with it. But then again, I never really told her. I didn't say, hey, grandma, today we were doing soul retrieval in class. It wasn't like that. I kind of framed it as, well, I'm studying sound and I have singing bowls and this is what they do. And she would actually let me play them on her. So I talked to her more about the sound stuff. It wasn't so much the energetic work. Now that she has passed, I'm sure she's fully aware that I'm working with all sorts of fabulous people.
Oh,
and she's been around too. Yep, she knows. So, but no, and the thing that made it challenging with this one family member was that she knew somebody who had taken the modern shamanism class here in town, and she said that it had changed that person, and she didn't like how it had changed that person. And so she was afraid that the same thing would happen to me when I took it. And I'm like, she had her own experiences. She's her own person. I'm not the same person. I'm going to have my own experiences. And so there's still a little bit of resistance there, and we can get into that a little bit later, but I'd like to give you guys the opportunity to jump in.
I just think that a lot of this centers around the societal programming of fear and judgment. We shouldn't have to, bottom line, you're motivated by fear and love. Those are the only two reasons we do anything. And I think that parents or family members that are very judgy are very fear-based. And in order for you to live in your authenticity, if you feel the need to come out and make this big announcement, then so be it. Knowing that you're going to face the potential rejection of your family, I think that it's just where we are right now in a time. And I think that the piece of the pie that we are all incarnated at this time, we're all cycle breakers in some capacity or another. And if it's dealing with things like this or dealing with sexuality, any of the quote unquote taboo topics as far as family is concerned or as far as society is concerned, we're all breaking some sort of generational curse or trauma. And I think that that's what we're here to do.
Yes. So much yes.
So much yes.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't think I really came out as far as the spirituality goes. I was shown options from a family friend, and I just started finding what fits, what resonates, where my heart is singing and following that. And as I grew, the people around me saw how much more, confident and better the change that it truly does happen. Yes. And if you're triggering people by changing, then that's just unfortunately part of the deal. It's part of the game that when you step into it, it's gonna be part of that. And so I kept coming to, and I don't even know where this phrase came from, but you got to love yourself enough. Do I love myself enough? Am I choosing to love myself enough? And that was the base point for all of my decisions, not only my spiritual path and the things that I'm choosing to practice, but also the other decisions that I have made along the way. And before I had got no contact with my mom at one Christmas, I do remember having a Christmas, and there was some conversation happening, and I was having that rough spot with my mom where I was trying to reconnect. I'm putting 75% in, trying to make something happen, and let's meet in some way and capacity. Let's have a conversation. And my uncle, who she has been living with, had made a comment about, but Jen, you're a Christian and you should. And I didn't even hear the rest of
Right.
the phrase. I didn't even know what he said. My ears got hot, and I was like, you know what? Joke's on you. I'm not a Christian. And that was the first time I just went, bleh, right? I just said it, and it's like, and to feel okay that saying that I am not a Christian and not feel bad about it and not have that triggering moment internally, that fear of judgment, where it's like, this is who I am. Just because I do not subscribe to what you are saying,
So
I feel good.
How did the room react to that?
I think I just, for the first time ever, shut them up. Like, they just stopped talking. Like, and we moved on, and we had pie, and my family was like, okay, we're just gonna act like that didn't happen,
Pie.
It was, of course, at a holiday.
Pie. But then there's that. Did you catch that part at the end, though? There where you said, we're just going to pretend like that didn't happen.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think that that's something that probably resonates with a lot of people that would listen to us, is that our families maybe are like, meh, and then they're just going to gloss over it, and then you just become the weird one in the family. Oh, she's a little different. She burns sage and talks to other spirits, And I think that it's important that we stay present and in front of them and continue to say, no, I'm still here. Stop glossing over me. I'm still here. I'm still the person I was before. I just think it's important we stay in front of it.
I think part of that too is finding that the line of being authentic and present and just showing up as you are, and being evangelical with it, or being preachy with it,
Right.
because sometimes I see that as well when we're attempting to come out, or witnessing other people along this path as we come out, and then we become just as bad sometimes in our own tactics with being seen, being heard, being validated, that we just throw all of it out there, when yes, it's a mirror in some ways to some people, and to see what the church sometimes, how that feels on us. But we have to, we're here to break those curses and not be the same thing, just in a 180 view. Kind of when you're coming out too, that was one thing, like, if you don't care, I'm not, like I said, I'm not here to convert anybody. I'm just here to be me. And if you could see me being happy by doing this stuff, or even, find out, oh my gosh, she's good at it, like that's you're a nice person, you're not, bringing the devil upon me by walking into my home. It's just simply being. You don't have to, when coming out, it doesn't have to be this pull or this tug or this really try hard persona that you are taking on. That was a big thing too for me.
What do you think it is about this in particular then that makes this so wrong in a family's eyes?
I think a lot of people have the wrong impression of what spirituality is and what it can mean. So I'll give you an example. So I had saved some chicken bones from the last time I bought a rotisserie chicken, and I had cleaned them, they were drying out, and I left them in a baggie on the counter to use later on. I was either going to add them to my kit, or I don't know what I was going to do with them yet. To be honest, I haven't even used them yet with anything, because I'm still trying to figure out what I want to use them for. So the practice of divination that I do is kind of a combination of bone casting and charm casting, where you have various items that you've collected and you've cleared the energy and you've reprogrammed them, and then you use them like oracle or tarot cards to give you, information from the universe. So we had a family holiday here. It was Thanksgiving last year, and my aunt, who is unsure about all of this, even though she's really into essential oils, saw the baggie on the counter, and she's like, well, what are those for? I'm like, oh, those are for a project. I didn't even feel like explaining it, because I knew that she wouldn't hear it. No matter what was going to come out of my mouth, she would not hear it, because she didn't want to. She was too uncomfortable with and probably afraid of having an open and honest conversation. And it's like, I don't have any issues with people who like practice voodoo. It's a practice that I'm not interested in, and I know that it can be very tricky to do correctly. But I think some people think of those things of like, oh, that's voodoo and that's bad and blah blah blah. And it's like, no, you're not being open about this. You're not willing to understand where I'm coming from with any of this. I think it's a lack of understanding for the most part. And
But the
a
Bible
lot of people
says,
and an unwillingness to not talk about it.
yeah. And I think that most people will, that is what I come across the most is I'm interested, but the Bible says.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggle there because, excuse me, it is, although I have a reverence for the Bible and those times and the information contained in the Bible, I don't like the cherry picking that happens in organized religion. So if it's not okay for me to commune with spirits, then we're going to have to go stone Karen because she has her menses. Like, why are we picking what does and doesn't apply, especially as the Old Testament is concerned? And I think that it speaks to how little religion has actually changed over the years, how it has not moved forward along with the rest of society. Now, that is a very, very broad generalization. I had fantastic church experience. I had a very progressive church experience. They were interested in other people's religions. I don't think they would go so far as to dip into what is paganism or what is, voodoo or anything else, but they did bring in speakers from other religions. And, this is what the Jewish population believes. This is what these people believe. And then there would be a group that would study and learn and push boundaries, as it were, which was great. But I think that it really speaks to how somehow this portion of society just stayed stagnant and hasn't progressed past, and how deeply ingrained it is. And then we get into the conversation of epigenetics and how far back does this go in your family? How deeply rooted are you and how willing are you to be flexible?
Oh, I like that.
That speaks really well of that church, to be willing to have other people come in and create a level of understanding of like, this is what they believe, this is what they believe. And I think the point of resistance that is popping up here is that a lot of organized religions are not necessarily about improving the individual, but getting you to buy into what they believe. And that's where it feels a little cultish to me at times. Not that like Catholicism in and of itself is a cult or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but it feels like it's, spirituality is about focusing on yourself, and there's all sorts of facets that you can chase. You can focus on, ancestral healing and family healing and updating your genetic code and all of that stuff. And there's so many facets that you can get into, and it's about improving yourself and assisting those on the other side, right? Paving the way for the future generations too. So it goes both ways. And like you said, I think a lot of what is happening with organized religions is that they're just staying stagnant, believe the same things that have always been because that's what we say.
You find that just, in parallel true within family or organize your family cluster. Sometimes you see the same thing as where your family's like, well, either we're a family of doctors and you're going to go to school for that, or this is where my family grew up very without. And so the inspiration to go out and better yourself was not really a high priority. It's just get by, do what you got to do, get by, live your life, stay to the grind, whatever. And so when you are the black sheep and you break out and you are bettering themselves, there's this triggering moment internally, like who says you get to do this?
Right. I wondered when you were talking, if it isn't just a little bit of jealousy, like, oh, she's doing something that I didn't have the kahunas to do.
Totally.
Yeah. So you end up self-stifling, whether it's subconscious or conscious, and you just go along with it until you finally can't. I think that's where we're hitting in this generation and in this timeline, is we're finally hitting the breaking point of we just can't do this anymore. We fit, like, our bodies will not allow us to continue on this path. That's where the depressions and the anxieties, and then even things as far as probably like food allergies and all of these different things that your body is like warning signs
Right.
that this does not fit. Let's do something somehow, some way to break free of whatever that this is holding. And like you said, it's going to be a little bit of jealousy. It's going to be, as much as you want to be an inspiration and help people, there's people who are not going to buy into it. And you have to be okay with that. That's part of the hard part, is can you break free of current family relationships, even if it's temporary or permanent? Can you break free from friendships? Can you love yourself enough to follow these feelings and just kind of do your own thing and be in trust that you're going to be supported and trust that you're going to find new alignment with other people?
Well, we're social creatures by nature, right? And we add the fact that we're social creatures by nature, and then add that to I'm seeking outside approval, which is 100% of human culture right now. Is we're definitely, I think most people are seeking outside, validation in some form or another, or, validation from parents that they never got as children, and they're still seeking it as adults. And it makes it really, really hard to come out of that closet, so to speak, and do your own thing and say, this is what gets me in the feels. This is what excites me. And especially if you came from a judgy, fear-based family, that's going to be way, way harder. So I think that probably a lot of people who are listening would have that sort of experience and story. I would love to hear those, by the way. So if you guys have the opportunity to write into us and let us know how this went for you, it might trigger an additional episode.
So do you guys think that there is a valid reason, or let me rephrase that. Do you think there are valid reasons for keeping certain parts of your practice or your practice entirely hidden from other people?
Yes. I wouldn't say hidden necessarily, but I would say there is, like you mentioned, why do we even have to come out of the spiritual closet in the first place? I just am. And if you happen to see me having a little prayer moment in my office, or have a little light some incense, or what, I'm struggling, I'm going to pull a card to get some support, or whatever it is, that's no different than you having your devotional, or you having your prayer time, and you having your different, whatever it is.
Or
and
your cross hanging on the wall in your office.
Exactly. That's your, you don't have to come out, and I'm just going to show up. And that's what for me has proven to be the most effective. Honestly, it's I'm not struggling, pushing and pulling against anybody who doesn't, and if you do come at me with that, I will choose to interact the best that I can. I just show up. And if you have questions, great. If you want to kind of throw some jabs and joke because you're uncomfortable, it usually comes from a place of uncomfortability. I get that a lot. Like my whole office knows that I am a spiritual being, and I bring it into my life every day. I read cards and all that, and they're like, I don't know. I just don't want to know my future. I'm like, so you learn to have these little comments back of like, well, it's not just that. It's really helped me in this way. Or some people and they keep coming to you with little curiosities or little jabs. It's usually out of you kind of see that. To me, I see that they're breaking through
their own paradigm. Yeah,
they're like, well, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of, it's like sensational to them, and their curiosity is piqued. And even if you can play with it, it doesn't have to be so serious. I think that too. Oh, you really don't want, here, let me get some cards out for you, and let me kind of tip of the iceberg say what this is. And then their eyes kind of there, like they start to cock their head, and that the little brain is spinning, and then like, oh yeah, okay, ha ha ha, and walk away. But the next thing you know, they're sitting in my chair in my office, just letting me just spewing, or
been identified as a safe person, because
right.
you are doing that, and it's 6 months down the road, you're still doing it, and you're still alive. You haven't burned up and gone to hell. So it must be okay, right?
Right. And, as long as you're not shoving it down someone's throat yourself.
That is huge.
Exactly. Just be who you are. Just show up as you can and explore the best you can. And there are some things that people, even the closest to people don't know that I do. And that's just because I don't feel, what is the benefit of me? Is that out of, you have to ask yourself, is that out of ego because you want to be seen? in the spiritual community in some way? You want to show off in some way? Or is it truly going to help somebody by knowing how you did this spell? Is it really going to help by, expressing your crazy meditative experience that came through? Or is it, is it to be validated yourself? Is it to be seen yourself? And that stuff, that's more root work that you can be shown to be done.
Right. Sometimes no matter what angle you come at something, it really doesn't matter. They're going to have their own opinions and values. And I think that's where it comes, the part that you were mentioning about not being preachy, so to speak, not, just because you're observing or witnessing someone living their life in a certain way, you don't insert your belief system onto them and say, well, you're definitely gonna accrue some karma for that. I would never say that to someone, but somewhere along the line, it was acceptable for a religious person or a Christian person to say, well, you're gonna go to hell. I think we're stopping a lot of this by being the bigger person, maybe by not pressing our issues or our belief system onto someone else. We're never going to just insert it. Now, I don't know that that's always the case. That is the case with my tribe and the people that I know. And because everybody that I've ever worked with has been very respectful. They are the ones who are being targeted by family. They don't go in and guns blazing defend themselves. It's always just as necessary.
That said, I think I do see or have seen or could see where this shifts in the opposite direction. Kind of like, the divine masculine and divine feminine. You want to balance that out. It's not a complete 180 shift to a complete divine feminine and we condemn the masculine. That's not the point.
Right.
Same thing here. We don't necessarily want to come in and completely barrage their views and to be just as the same person. You're just as bad as they are if that's the approach that you take, in my opinion. So
then you're missing the point.
It's exactly. It's just another version of the same wounding that's playing out. So I don't see it a whole lot because, like I said, I think we come to it with a place of compassion because we've been there. We've been hurt and wounded from family, and I have lost a lot of people along the way by being on this. And I think I'm going to lose more. I think something else I wanted to bring up a little bit was like, there's not going to just be the one, hey, I'm out of the woo closet and here it is. Like there's many, many, many layers. I came out of the woo closet and I learned some things and now it feels almost like there's another one to come out of. Like there's another layer of, I think and it's the one that doesn't currently subscribe to some of that still toxic spirituality, toxic wounding that is even within our community as a whole, and challenging those views and coming out and saying, this is an extended maybe option or belief system or way of doing things that is getting me condemned. Like, no, because in the Reiki manual it says, or in this thing it says, you've been taught that this is the way, and I'm not subscribing to that. So I kind of want to be like, it almost feels like there's another door or another closet to break free. I'm the spiritual closet into the next, whatever that means. And it feels like that there's maybe some people that won't join me for the ride. And that's going to have to be okay. That makes sense.
Authenticity is a huge piece of this. And I kind of feel like that's what incarnating on 3D Earth is about how far away can you get and then make your way back to who you are as a soul, back to your authenticity, and what struggles do you have to go through, because we learn from our struggles, and I think that's kind of just life's journey. And I think authenticity in all aspects. We may be doing the spirituality piece, but other people, again, are doing their own thing with authenticity, a million ways of being authentic. And it's just a time of almost revival where, especially for people of color or women or, anyone who's been in the minority for how many hundreds of years, this is their time to say, no, I'm here and I'm not going away and I know who I am. You're not going to tell me who I am. anymore. I think that's sort of the theme that's happening right now. So I think that a lot of what we're talking about really applies across the table. Everybody can resonate with this at some level.
Before we move on from this topic, I did want to talk about one other question, or present one other question, and that is, what do you do when your family is supportive, like they're 100% on board, they got your back, but it's your partner or your spouse's family that is not open to it?
This is way more common, I find, when I deal with clients and tribe members. I think this is a way more common issue. I just had this come up within our community where she's like, I can't get away from my husband long enough to sit and listen to class. And it's truly, I mean, it breaks my heart because I see this person flourishing and enjoying what she's doing, but she has to hide it from her husband. So I think this is way more common than the biological, or the family group that you grew up in.
That's where I'm privileged, I guess. Because not only does my husband get it, he's gifted in his own ways. He doesn't share that often. Most people don't. But it's such a treat when he does. But so he gets it. There's still moments where he's like, girl, you're diving too deep, too fast. What the heck is going on? I don't like how weird you're getting right now in this moment. Like, are you okay? So it's always a place of concern of like, okay, do you have to keep cutting yourself in that wound or not? And where my in-laws, they kind of get it. They do kind of, even to the point where my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law came to me for my first reading when I was made public the first time. They came and they paid for reading just to support me. So, and they kind of they've seen more stuff on the spirit side where they like would, I think grandma came and saw me last night. I am very privileged in that way, but still there's some kitty gloves, I think, that you have with that, and knowing how much to share and how much of that, and really ultimately deciding how much of this is for you and your betterment. And when you show how you've grown and how much of whatever is improving within your expansion, and if it feels good and is still vibratory alignment with them, to me it's almost like they're just going like, oh my God, this is so great for you. Just like going to work out. I'm sure that I've heard this plenty of times with relationships where the husband doesn't want the wife to work out because then she's going to look better, feel better, have more confidence. So is that the vibratory alignment that you want to have in a partner? Same thing is applied to spirituality, whatever you're doing. If it gives you the confidence and the love for yourself and the ultimate expansion and growth, do they support you in that? So if that would be my tip, if you are talking to your spouse, and ask them, like, if I were to do something, anything that makes me feel good, feel better about myself, give me confidence, would you want me to go pursue that? And if they truly want you to, then that applies to spirituality too.
Yeah. My spouse's family is evangelical Lutheran. And at some point in time when they realized, well, this isn't going away. We're now 4 years into it and it's not a phase anymore. And then for my spouse to say, you have a passion for this that I don't see in any other area of your life. That's a big deal, right? It's huge. And because I feel like something happens to me when we get on this subject. I can be, sure, I'll accommodate you. I'll do I'll do what you need to do, kind of thing. But then when it comes to my time to do this is my time to do this. And I'm not going to allow you to take that from me anymore, or, whatever the case may be. It wasn't ever taken from me, but just that when you plug into this or plug into anything that you're passionate about, it doesn't have to be spirituality. It can be anything. When you plug into what you're passionate about, you suddenly become stronger than, better than you were yesterday. And I think that's all, if you subscribe to it, that's all that God ever wanted for us, is for us to come and live a life that we're passionate about. And why else incarnate if you're not here to live hard and, you know, do the things and eat the cake, and like, we're here in this physical density, let's live it up and be us. If you're not, I could talk a whole hour about if you're not if you're not, how that messes with vibration and frequency, but that's not, you know, what this is about.
Part of that a little bit is if you're struggling with your in-laws or with some, you know, allow yourself to kind of play with it, and don't be afraid to be the butt of the joke a little bit. Jokes always make things lighter. Laughing always makes things, so if they are teasing you or whatever, just try to have a light heart about it. It tends to help. If you could be just, oh, well, I'm just that crazy aunt with crystals and her, you know, and tarot card come in to help. Exactly. Right. So it's, if that's what I have to be and kind of help with that persona a little bit, especially to start with, until they start to see how much that it does light you up and how much of a you've improved and you've grown into something more light, if you will, for lack of a better term, then let that be that. That's the gateway, and that's the entry point for a lot of people. And if that's all that it ever is, then that's okay too, because again, it's your practice, it's your spirituality.
Just psychologically speaking, you're gonna catch more flies with honey than vinegar, kind of thing. If you're able to present something that doesn't cause someone else's defenses to go up, you're gonna get farther.
Yeah, and remember too, just like anything, when you deal with in-laws, or you married your husband or spouse or wife or whomever, that's who you married. Your relationship with them is going to be a higher priority than your relationship with your in-laws. Not saying that you can't have great relationship with your in-laws and bring them in, but if you're struggling with that, it's just part of, I think it's just part of your own self-discovery too.
I think a lot of people struggle with their in-laws for a lot of reasons.
Right.
I mean, I think that's pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you have your safe place.
Yeah.
Well, I really was hard pressed to think of. I wanted to maybe talk to somebody that I knew within, you know, my community, within our tribe, that had the experience, so I could kind of get their, you know, feedback on what their experience was. So I would be very interested in hearing from anyone, any of the listeners, about their experience, and just really would like to know what other people are thinking about it.
Yeah, we're definitely a safe space to come if you are interested in this kind of stuff and you feel like you can't talk about it, or if you feel like you don't quite understand it yet. Feel free to, you know, send us an email or send us a message on Facebook, and we'll chat with you. And it's not like in the next episode we'll say, well, Sally was asking me this. We won't do that to you. So
Definitely. Jen, any more that you want to
are there any tips, I guess, for people? I mean, so Facebook's been great. There's a lot of different groups. Be open to, but be cautious sometimes in that. TikTok has been great. There's a slew of spiritual content on TikTok. So it makes it feel accessible, that you're not the only one who's going through whatever you're going through, and that there's plenty of people in this world who are on this bandwidth. So those are
TikTok,
great.
I also think, is digestible. Like, if you're really scared, here's 60 seconds that you know, and then you can turn that off and walk away, or you could not turn it off and walk away. It's TikTok sort of makes my heart swell, because I'm looking at all of these people, mostly youth, you know, or young, early 20s, and there are some of us older folks on there too, that are aware, and they're woke, and they're aware of their feelings, they're aware of their spirituality, they're not conforming to you know, religious norms, and that makes me so happy that our message, or this message, has gotten through to at least some of them. That means more people than just the three of us are doing it.
Right. And this will be a generational thing that gets broken.
Yep.
It's already working. It's already happening. So
yes,
that's really
yes,
cool.
that.
I think the biggest piece of advice that I have is to take a look at what's available in your area. I know that, you know, in-person stuff is still limited, but if you can at least do some research as to what may be available in your area, as far as, you know, meetings, get-togethers, or workshops, when in-person stuff starts to happen again, or even virtually. If any of your local businesses are doing virtual things, find your people that way. And one of the things that has been really helpful to me has been YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because sometimes the algorithm understands me and sometimes it does not. And pay attention to sometimes what you're recommended, because you never know if that's just YouTube being YouTube or if that's like Spirit being like, hey, here's a breadcrumb. And it may lead you to a community of people that you can get together with and practice with. So
Yep.
There's a little effort involved, I think, with some of that. It's, read the comments, scroll through, comment on other stuff, and you'll find. That's how I met. I mean, Lena's through class. Missy was through another
Group on
mutual
Facebook.
group and Facebook and stuff. So you meet, and that's not as taboo as it once was. So, comment on those YouTube, videos and in groups and different things like that, and stay tuned because there's probably going to be way more stuff as soon as this lifts and we can do in person. There's going to be so much, I think, going to be popping out.
Yep, can't wait to get together again. I know that I hear that amongst people that we work with. They're like, I can't wait to see people in person again. I can't wait to go to workshops and make stuff. I can't, they're so excited to get together again. Okay, well, we want to thank you all for joining us today. And if you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can find us on Facebook at Quantum Coalescence. And Coalescence is COALESCENCE. It's a big word, but it means a lot to us. So on Instagram, we are at Quantum Coalescence, and our email address is quantumcoalescence@gmail.com. So keep in mind, we also would love to hear from you if you have experience with this topic that we discussed today, or you might want to chat about potentially being a guest on our show. We're going to be looking for people to interview and talk to and get with that maybe don't have some of the same belief systems that we have, so we can find out more. We're very open people. And the next time that we're getting together, we're going to be talking about, is it the practitioner or is it the modality? So you're going to want to probably join us for that to see what kind of chitter chatter we can come up. It promises to be entertaining. So be sure to join us for that. And between now and then, just everybody keep it on the QC.